man in dark glasses walks into a narrow alley. A white cane taps against the pavement. Two men step out of the shadows and block his path. They trade a grin. They think they just found the easiest target of the night. They are wrong. Within moments, both of them are on the ground, and the blind man is already walking away. If you know your comics, you know this one. Daredevil. A man whose blindness somehow makes him more aware of his surroundings than the people who can see. His powers are fiction, obviously. Radar sense is not real, but when you hear the word superpower, your mind probably jumps somewhere specific anyway. Flying, super strength, outrunning a car, laser vision, stepping through a wall and appearing somewhere else entirely. None of that exists. Not even close. Here's what does exist instead. Blind people who navigate city streets using nothing but sound. People who sit in ice water without shivering. People who hold their breath for minutes at a time. People who memorize an entire shuffled deck of cards faster than you can shuffle it. People whose bare hands have been conditioned to break solid wood. Every one of these sounds like an exaggeration. Every one of them checks out. Just not for the reason a movie would give you. Evolution did not make you the fastest animal, or the strongest, or the one with the sharpest eyes. It made you something rarer. It made you adaptable. Given the right repeated demand, your brain rewires itself. Your bones remodel themselves, your lungs recalibrate, and your nervous system quietly renegotiates what counts as an emergency. So here are 6 abilities that sound like superpowers. For each one, we're going to ask the same 4 questions. What is it, really? Is it actually real? How does it work under the hood? And can an ordinary person train it? Let's start with the one that sounds the most impossible. Echolocation. What is it? The ability to build a mental picture of your surroundings using sound alone. The same trick bats and dolphins use, except done by a human, on foot, in a city. Is it real? Yes, and it is more common than you would guess. The clearest example is Daniel Kish, who lost both eyes to cancer before his first birthday. Today, he hikes through forests, rides a bicycle in traffic, and walks through unfamiliar buildings, all without a guide. How does it work? Kish makes a sharp click with his tongue. The sound spreads outward in every direction. It bounces differently off a parked car than it does off a hedge, a doorway, or an open field. And the reflected sound returns to his ears carrying that difference. On its own, that's not so strange. What is strange is what his brain does with it. Brain scans of expert echolocators have shown activity lighting up inside the visual cortex, the part of the brain normally reserved for processing what your eyes send it. While they are only listening to echoes, the brain does not seem to care which sense delivers spatial information. It only cares that the information is useful, and it will repurpose whatever tissue it needs to make sense of it. Can you train it? To a meaningful degree, yes. You do not need years of total blindness to notice the beginnings of this. Stand a few feet from a large wall, close your eyes, and make a clear, consistent click. Take one step closer and click again. Most people can start to hear the echo shift within a single session. Getting good enough to navigate the way Kish does takes far longer, but the underlying skill is not reserved for the blind. It's just rarely practiced by anyone else. Which brings us to something almost the opposite of a heightened sense. Not sharpening a perception, but overriding one of the body's oldest alarms. 2. Cold tolerance. What is it? The ability to stay calm and functional in cold that would send most people into a shivering, gasping panic. Is it real? Yes, and its most famous demonstrator is a Dutch athlete named Wim Hof, who has run a half marathon barefoot on snow and ice and completed long swims under Arctic ice. A related, much older version of this exists in Tibetan Buddhist monks, who practice a discipline called Tummo meditation, partly by drying wet, ice-cold sheets draped over their bodies using nothing but their own generated warmth. How does it work? This is where the story gets more interesting than the popular version usually tells it. For years, the assumption was that practitioners like Hof were somehow supercharging brown fat, a specialized tissue whose job is to burn energy for heat instead of storage. But when researchers at Wayne State University scanned Hof's brain and body directly during cold exposure, they found something different. Much of his extra heat was coming from voluntary contraction of his intercostal muscles, the muscles between his ribs, not from brown fat at all. The bigger finding was that his tolerance appeared to be led from the top down, by his brain consciously overriding the body's usual cold panic signal, rather than his body simply becoming biologically cold-proof. In plainer terms, the training seems to change how much control your mind exerts over an automatic response, more than it changes your raw physiology. Can you train it? Within limits, yes. And this is one of the better studied claims on this list, though scientists are still cautious about how strong or lasting the effects are. Slow, controlled breathing calms the nervous system before cold exposure. Gradual, repeated exposure Starting with something as simple as a cold shower teaches your body that cold is not automatically an emergency. What it does not do is make you immune to hypothermia, and every serious source on this technique warns against practicing the breathing portion alone in water, since the same breath holding that builds tolerance can also cause you to black out. Speaking of holding your breath, that leads directly into the next one. 3. Extreme breath holding. What is it? The ability to hold a single breath for minutes rather than seconds, a skill practiced most seriously by competitive freedivers. Is it real? Yes, and the numbers are startling. Most untrained people last somewhere between 30 and 90 seconds before they gas. Elite freedivers have held their breath for over 11 minutes. How does it work? Here's the part almost everyone gets wrong first. That desperate urge to breathe does not come from running out of oxygen. It comes from rising carbon dioxide. Every second you hold your breath, carbon dioxide builds up in your blood. Specialized sensors detect it, and they send an increasingly urgent signal telling you to breathe, well before your oxygen levels are actually dangerous. Freedivers are not training their lungs to hold more air, and they are not making themselves immune to low oxygen. They are training their tolerance for that carbon dioxide alarm, learning to stay calm through a signal that would send an untrained person straight to the surface. Can you train it? Yes, but carefully and never alone. Structured, supervised breath hold training gradually raises this tolerance over weeks and months. Doing it casually and alone, especially in water, is exactly how freediving accidents happen, because the body can lose consciousness from low oxygen before the diver ever feels short of breath. Now here's an ability that has nothing to do with your body's alarms, and everything to do with how your brain chooses to store information. 4. The memory palace. What is it? A technique, sometimes called the method of loci, that lets ordinary people memorize extraordinary amounts of information, including, yes, an entire shuffled deck of playing cards, in a matter of seconds. Is it real, and does it actually work for cards specifically? Genuinely yes, and this is worth confirming carefully, because it does sound like the kind of claim that gets exaggerated. As of recent competitions, the world record for memorizing a shuffled deck of 52 cards sits at a little over 12 seconds, held by a competitor named Gear Eraldine Bat N. Multiple-time world memory champion Dominic O'Brien once recited a sequence of 2,808 cards, 54 full decks, after seeing each card only once. This is not a party trick built on natural talent. Nearly every competitor at the World Memory Championships uses some version of the same underlying method. How does it work? The method of loci dates back at least 2,500 years, to a story about the Greek poet Simonides of Chios, who reportedly identified banquet guests crushed in a building collapse by remembering exactly where each one had been sitting. That's the whole insight. Your brain was never built to hold on to abstract information like a suit and a number. It was built to remember places, routes, and vivid stories. So competitors first convert something abstract, like the 8 of clubs, into something concrete and memorable. Often a specific person performing a specific action with a specific object. Then they mentally place that image at a location along a route they know by heart. Their childhood home, for instance, walking room by room. To retrieve the information later, they simply walk the route again in their mind, and the images are waiting where they left them. For a full deck at competition speed, memory athletes take this further, encoding 2 or 3 cards into a single combined image, so they need far fewer mental stops along the route. Can you train it? Yes, more easily than most of the abilities on this list. You do not need a photographic memory, because no one actually has one in the way fiction imagines. You need a memorized route through a familiar place and some practice turning boring information into a vivid, slightly absurd image. Most people notice a real improvement within their first few attempts. That skill lives entirely inside the mind. The next one is almost the opposite, a skill that looks like pure physical split-second speed. 5. Lightning reflexes. What is it? The seemingly supernatural quickness you see in an elite goalkeeper stopping a penalty kick, or a boxer slipping a punch that should be too fast to see coming. Is it real? Yes, though not for the reason it appears to be. Human reaction time to a truly unexpected stimulus is fairly fixed, roughly 1/5 of a second at best, and that hasn't changed much across elite athletes and untrained people alike. How does it work, then, if raw reaction speed barely differs? The trick is that elite performers are rarely reacting to the ball at all. They're predicting where it's going before it's fully struck. Years of exposure train the brain to read tiny, almost invisible cues, the angle of a hip, the tilt of a shoulder, the plant of a foot, and commit to a decision milliseconds before the outcome is actually determined. What looks like impossibly fast reflexes is really pattern recognition running so quickly and so automatically that it feels instantaneous. even to the athlete performing it. Can you train it? Yes. Though what you're training isn't your nervous system's raw wiring, it's your library of patterns. This is why elite performers drill the same specific situations thousands of times, not to physically react faster in general, but to feed their brain enough repetitions of a given scenario that it stops reacting and starts anticipating. Which brings us to the last one. And back to where we started this whole list. 6. Iron Fist. What is it? The ability to strike solid objects, wood, brick, concrete, with a bare hand, without shattering it. Is it real? Yes, though it's a combination of two separate things people often lump together as one: unusually conditioned bone and precise technique. Both matter, and neither one alone fully explains what you see in a demonstration. How does it work? Bone is living tissue, and it responds to repeated moderate stress in a similar way muscle does, by rebuilding itself slightly denser and stronger than before. This principle is sometimes called Wolff's Law, after the 19th century surgeon who first documented how bone reshapes itself around the loads placed on it. Practitioners of disciplines like karate and Muay Thai condition their knuckles, shins, and forearms this way, gradually, over years, through low-force repeated impact, never through a single reckless strike. But bone density is only half the demonstration. The rest is technique. Striking with correct alignment concentrates force into a small, specific point, and the strike is often already retracting by the instant of impact, which changes how that force gets absorbed. Take away either half, the conditioning or the technique, and the trick stops working. Can you train it? Yes, but slowly. And this is the one on the list where impatience genuinely causes injury. Progression happens over years, not weeks, and reputable training always increases force gradually rather than jumping straight to breaking boards. So here's the thread running through all 6 of these. None of them are exceptions to how your biology works. They're demonstrations of it. Your nervous system adjusts to sound, the way it adjusts to cold, the way it adjusts to rising carbon dioxide, the way it adjusts to a penalty kick it's seen enough times before. Your skeleton adjusts to repeated, careful loading, the same way your memory adjusts to a vivid mental map. Give your body a real, consistent demand, and it quietly rebuilds itself to meet it. Comic books needed a radioactive spider or a gamma-ray accident to explain abilities like these. Your own body never needed any of that. It just needed you to ask it for something, again and again, until it agreed. Which brings us back to that man in the alley. Nobody spends years training on the off chance they'll need to survive a mugging. But somewhere behind the fiction of Daredevil sits a much stranger, much more useful truth. The abilities that feel superhuman were never off limits to you. They were just off the standard schedule.